that really going to go over well with your channel, with your demographic?
With what?
Marjorie Green, the crazy
Congresswoman,
the Jewish space lasers. Yeah.
What did she say now? Oh,
Forest fires are caused by Jewish space lasers.
Yeah, but they formed the Anglo-Saxon.
Yeah.
Something other.
She's fucking buddies with a pedophile.
Is she? On top of everything else?
So the guy that I guess she's not really buddies with him, but she's like I don't know, esteemed colleagues or however they put it. She talks good about him, like, hey, they're not like super tight. I don't remember the guy's name. Oh. I just remember laughing.
But you just remember he's a pedophile.
Not only is he a pedophile, well, okay, so he got caught.
You're talking about Gates?
Yeah, got caught trafficking underage women for sex.
That was just a dart into the dark.
And he wasn't even the main target. The FBI was like, "Hey, this guy that you work with, he's up to some shady shit. You want to wear a wire?" And he's like, "Yeah." And so he wears a wire to get dirt for the FBI and this other guy. And while he's doing it, the FBI is like, you know, it's not okay to have sex with kids, right?" Why would you incriminate yourself? Like, he's so dumb that not only does he do that, but he does it while he's wearing a wire for the FBI. Like, they're not going to notice. They're like, you're getting dirt on that guy? That's great. And then you also trafficked a 17-year-old across state. How did you get elected, sir? Being that dumb. And the whole thing, yeah, apparently she went back and she, like, deleted all of her old tweets and stuff like that where she was talking about him and whatnot. And I just, why are our politicians like this?
I think it's more that people, they hope that they're going to be able to make effective change for their lives. I think that's, but they have to be, why do you vote for anybody? Let's just say, you're voting for House of Representatives. What would sway you one way over one candidate over another?
That has changed a lot over the years.
Are you still voting for people depending upon what they're wearing?
I have never done that. Actually, no, that's not entirely true. There have been a couple of occasions where the way that somebody has dressed has influenced my opinion of them.
Which then affected your voting.
Yeah. So, like, if somebody's wearing a jacket, right, and on that jacket is a symbol of, say, a prominent white supremacist group, I'm not going to vote for them because that's not the kind of people that I want representing me and my interests. So I can say that I've been swayed against a candidate, but ultimately that's not super important. I look at a couple of things when I'm evaluating a candidate, and the number one thing is, what have they done? Because politicians say shit all the time, and it doesn't matter if they're on the right or if they're on the left. They just and it's fucking words that don't mean shit. And it doesn't. Like, when I was watching the debates in the 2016 election, right? And I'm watching the
debates. You can remember that far back?
Yes, honey. I'm not that old.
All right. Well, hey, I'm that old.
Yeah. When I was watching the debates for the 2016 election, a cancer survivor, I've got plenty of people in my family that have got health issues, and healthcare at that point in time was much more important to me than a lot of other issues, because that's what was hitting home for me at that time. So I was paying really close attention to what people had to say about healthcare. I have been a fan of the idea of standardizing healthcare across the country for a while, because I've worked with insurance companies for decades, and they all suck across the board. Because when there's a profit motive, you remove altruism. Sure, there's plenty of people who are out there to help people, but when you're out there to make a buck,
I mean, but yet at the same time, though, you bought stock in a company because you're hoping that their stock went up and they were able to gouge their their customers for a couple of bucks more, so you could make money on the stock market
No,
trade.
no, 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 not looking downstream that far. I was just day trading, which is riding the highs and lows of the market. And I got really, really mad the last couple of days because apparently day trading is something that only people with money get to do because they're like, we noticed you've made 4 day trades, and you can only do that if you have $20,000 in your brokerage account. I'm like, do I look like the kind of person who has $20,000 in their brokerage account, sir? Give me my $500 back. Um, so yeah, apparently you have to have money to make money. It just really fucking reinforced
Well, I
that.
mean, that's just the way the world works. I
But
mean,
should it?
the rich get richer, the poor get poorer, and the middle class gets fucked.
But they hoard their money. Their dragons are not good for fucking
It's
society.
Yeah, but I mean, you have to look at it as a total thing, though. You know, think about it, when we were broke, right? We couldn't get anybody to borrow us $20
That's
to
true.
save our lives. Now, we're not rich, but we have enough, and everybody is knocking on our doors. Hey, how about this loan? How about this loan? How about
Right.
we'll cut it to 3%. No, I'll go 2.5. Yeah, and they're fighting with each other over our business now. But we don't need the money. I mean, but that's just the way the system is. Just like credit, you can't get credit to get a loan unless you have credit.
I think credit
And
has
and
actually
the
been
whole thing
bad.
is, and you have to look at the entire thing. It's all fixed. The stock market, everything. It's all fixed against you know
It's a
the
rich
person
person's game.
trying to better themselves and their lives.
I think credit and credit scores in general are bad for the country. I think that the availability, well, to take a look at what happened with student loans, right? Now, college for a long time was outside of what a lot of people could afford, right? But smaller community colleges and stuff like that, and people could afford to go to college with a little bit of help, right? Well, then student loans came along directly because of the fact that educate money for education became easily accessible for a large portion of the population.
Right?
Tuition skyrocketed
Oh yeah.
because they knew they could get the money back beforehand. uh, and it's that kind of thing that I think I take issue with credit in general because it sounds like a really, really good idea, but there's nothing to counteract downstream profit greediness. And that's the same thing with credit. When credit became didn't used to be widely accessible in the US, right? When credit became widely accessible to the US consumer, companies jacked their prices because now they know that while beforehand they had to keep their costs really, really low because you couldn't go out and buy yourself a TV unless you saved for a while. Well, now you've got credit. Now I can jack the cost of my TV up because you can pay it because you'll be making installment payments down the road that are lower. And I'm not super economist, so I have no idea how to fix that. I just know that it's clearly a fucking issue. And
Maybe
credit scores
maybe
are bullshit. You know that most countries don't use credit scores?
Right. Maybe it could be fixed here in America, where we bring the loaning, the lending back to the
Wait, are
community.
you recording?
Yep. Bring it back to the actual community within where the loan is being made, where small independent bankers and businesses are loaning to those who are in their community. Well, you haven't been established here. Sorry, you no loan for you. But establish yourself. Get a job, live here in the community. Give back to your community. Then loans that way.
That's a really interesting idea. I think local loaning that actually might be a
So
good
there's
idea.
actually a connection between the actual loan officer, the person loaning the money for a car or television or whatever, and the person who actually is consuming those goods. And if there's a problem with the guy who's being greedy, who's screwing everybody over, everybody in the community is going to know, and we're going to lynch him in the town square.
I don't think we should go that far.
Why not?
But
I think we should bring back public hangings.
Why?
But, well, that way people realize, they don't have that total disconnect from, capital punishment. Because look at when we used to have public hangings. People used to have parties. They would have picnics, and they would show up for the day. They'd buy tickets to the event. It was a community hanging. Let's hang that sucker. He did something wrong. He stole a tire off a car or something. I don't know, or a horse. But it doesn't matter what the crime was. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I think it might matter. I think it might matter. I think I also don't want to have a picnic with some guy.
Why not?
Because
he's not gonna mind. He's just gonna hang around.
You don't fight. Oh my god.
No. All right, but yeah, really.
Oh my god.
I mean,
you bring up.
I'm all full of dad jokes.
He is full of dad jokes. I think you're right. I think that actually might be a good way to get away from some of the issues that we've been having. But I'm wondering if you're gonna, because here where our city council loves to just shovel undervalued land and other property at
right.
a certain business person.
Yeah.
Don't you think that centralizing?
I think if the local community knew exactly why they just built a $14.5 million bridge, why was it built?
Hey, you lay off my bridge? I love that bridge.
That bridge is not needed.
Doesn't matter, I like it. What
does it save? A whole 30 seconds of commute time?
That's a lot of seconds of commute time, sir. And
but look at who owns all the land that is for sale on both sides of the bridge.
Well, that is true.
There is nothing but city-owned property. And they're going to shovel that right to the same guy they have been giving our shoreline to for pennies on the dollar. And
doesn't it seem like a weird conflict of interest to you that he's on the council?
Right? You would think people would be upset about that. They're like, wait a minute. Our public lands are not our public lands anymore? What happened to them? You sold them to another council member for what? Was that market? It's not even close to market value? But he's bettering the community by building $500,000 condos,
right? I can't afford those.
Can you afford those? Did you see what the new ones he built on there?
Oh,
a studio apartment that is no bigger than this actual studio we're sitting in right now. $10,000 a month.
You gotta have money to make money.
Are you kidding me? And they've demolished all that that public land to build that. Yeah, the 2-bedroom apartment there, with the view of the riverside on that one goes for $75,000 a month. A month. What in the hell is worth $75,000 a month?
I don't make that kind of money.
Yeah, and now they're going to not have the farmers market where it was before.
Oh, that's a shame. I like the farmers.
They're going to have it right there in front of the condos. So what does that do? And for where the booths for the farmers market used to be $15 a weekend, it goes to $80 a weekend for the vendor. What's the vendor going to have to do? The vendor's going to have to jack the price up, and you're going to see less vendors show up because it's going to be right there in that little plaza in front of it, of those condos. So,
honestly, why don't we just do the farmers market in the park?
But I forgot. If you get one of those apartments, though, you get a free valet service.
Ooh.
Yeah, and a doorman. So maybe that's worth $75,000 a month. But anyways, I digress. There's fixes to certain things. What we need to do is get politics out of the way and get money out of it. And when you get corporations who are buying politicians, they're bought and paid for to look out for just their interest. we're never going to get real fixes and real meaningful change in this world.
Why do we even allow lobbying? It's straight bribery.
It is.
Why do we allow it?
It's legalized bribery.
I think we need to get rid of lobbyists completely. We
Have,
need
have
to
you?
limit. We need to put a firm cap on campaign donations. You can only give X, and if you own 16 corporations, they're not people. You, as an individual person, can only give X. Done.
Have you seen the interview with I'm sorry, I'm going to cry, John Boehner, the ex Speaker of the House? Have you since he left office? Oh my, he's let's just say he's not a friend of Ted Cruz. He's not a friend of
Ted Cruz
Marjorie
is
Greene.
such a
He's not a fan of or friend of several people
who
are
likes
currently.
Cruz. He's such a spineless person.
But he's now the John Boehner, Mr. Sensitive, is now the spokesman for a marijuana company.
Nice.
I was like, in the interview, the last thing he says is, "I don't smoke it. I don't use it." And then we're like, right. You have all this stuff, product are laying around in your apartment, because he kept his apartment from where when next to Capitol Hill. He kept that. He's had it all along, so he can actually become a lobbyist, himself for the marijuana industry. But I mean, but they're paying him, and he is very upfront. They are paying me. They're paying me very well to be to be here to make sure that we get legalization across the United States. And
not that I don't think that we should, but
I should make sure that everybody out there in in YouTube and the world land, they are not just a marijuana; they are a marijuana, hemp, and medical company. So
yeah, the marijuana plant is extremely versatile. Like, and the whole people forget that in our country, legalization of marijuana isn't new. Marijuana, you used to be able to go down to whatever your equivalent of a corner store is and get a pack of marijuana cigarettes and just smoke them. And marijuana only became illegal because we had
the racist drug czar.
Yeah, and they classified it as a Schedule 3, and did all this. Oh my God! If you smoke marijuana, you're gonna do heroin and murder pigs.
The best part of that is the amount of money the federal government spent to to make marijuana the devil leaf, coming up with nicknames, propaganda against it all, and everything within the first 25 years, and then
such a waste of money.
Well, look at the war on drugs.
A waste of money.
There's a waste of freaking money.
The number one reason cartels
all that did was put more poor
influence.
People in prison.
Yeah,
that's all it did.
Put poor people in prison, and funneled money and influence to cartels. That's it. If you want to cut the balls off cartels, you legalize drugs. Done. Because then there's no.
I'm not a big fan of I don't want heroin being dealt across the street from my son's school.
No. I'm not saying I'm. That's a really good point. That's a very good point. Decriminalize use, right? So. Yeah, if you're going to be, what we would do then is we would reduce the number of people going to jail, because people are going to be doing heroin regardless, right?
All right.
Yeah.
Well, I hear a lot of people go from opioids to heroin because it's cheaper.
And one of the reasons people consider marijuana to be a gateway drug is some people who use harder drugs, who can't maintain their habit, use marijuana to mitigate the withdrawal symptoms that they suffer. So there is a correlation, but it's not a causal correlation. People use marijuana to mitigate their symptoms, not the other way around.
Well, I think a lot of drugs, though, and from what I've read, so I base my opinion on this, is when it comes to marijuana, alcohol, a lot of it is people who are self-medicating to relieve the symptoms and outcome of other issues. It's like they maybe they're having mental health issues, or they're having physical problems, or there's a series of different things that they are self-medicating for because they can't afford, because they have no medical coverage. So it's easier to get a couple ounces of weed to take care of the insomnia or the vertigo, do it that way, than it is to pay for a $9 freaking pill that you must take twice a day. That's
Yeah.
$18. But when the $18, half of that you can buy twice as much weed.
Or they're suffering under poverty, because
Yeah.
if you can't afford your rent, but you can afford a joint, you'll feel better about not being able to pay your rent. If you already can't pay your, and a lot of people have this idea that people who use drugs and alcohol, who are suffering under poverty, that it's the drugs and alcohol that make them poor, when it's usually the opposite. Is that the pressures of poverty usually lead to substance abuse, because
I don't
it's
like
easy.
being poor.
I'm not a big fan of being poor either.
I'm just saying,
It wasn't my funnest time in life. But yeah, if we decriminalize use, because people are going to use, we are going to have psychological distress that people can't manage. Some people don't realize that that's what they're doing. It's, I feel bad, I take this and I feel better. And they don't realize that they are self-medicating for an underlying psychiatric
Well, yeah.
disorder.
I mean, I really don't think people necessarily are making that connection, but they're doing it anyways.
Yeah. So we're always going to have people that do that. And we're going to have people who are buckling under economic pressure. If we remove the threat of prison from them, because it hasn't stopped them, right? And then we take money that we would be using to put these people in prison, and we use it to alleviate the things that are causing these problems, it's better for everyone.
I'm in agreement there with you. I just don't know if I want to decriminalize all drugs. Yeah, it would cut the head off of the serpent, the cartels.
Absolutely.
But at the same time, though, before you can do that, I think you would have to have a lot of other resources in place. And spending our tax dollars on those appropriate things, and making sure that those things are actually dealing with the issues and are dealing with it in a cost-effective way. Mm-hmm. Because otherwise, you're just removing the head off of one monster and placing it on the other one.
Yeah. Well, I mean, legalize all of them, but say for your harder stuff, your heroin, your cocaine, stuff like that, you can only purchase it from a state dispensary. Now, money that was going to smugglers, that was going to cartels, that was going to people who are legitimate drains on society.
Would then the government then become the dealer?
The government then
people
becomes
would be
the
taking
dealer.
What the government has and then be distributing it outside the country.
Mm-hmm. When you eliminate, they might be, but at that point, I'm going to be fair. I don't give a shit. We can deal with that later on. It might be an issue, but what you would do is you wouldn't eliminate, because there's always going to be other factors, but you would greatly reduce human trafficking. You would.
Yeah, human trafficking, that's a whole other ball of worms.
Yeah, but it goes part and parcel with. Yeah, ball of worms.
As soon as I said, I was like, no, that's can, you idiot.
It goes part and parcel with the drug trade. Because
they definitely need to suppress them, and make them, so they can't stand up and
as soon as that income stream is gone, they start losing power.
I think you're gonna continue to have the sex trafficking trade.
Yeah,
because it's going to be around forever, because it's one of the oldest types of employment ever.
I'm not talking the sex trade. I'm talking illegal sex trafficking. I support people who work in the sex trade industry. I'm talking about sexual enslavement and sex trafficking.
If I put a pole in here, would you dance for me?
I have the body of a person who does
that. I think you do.
I am a squishy
Just do it.
marshmallow woman. I'm not dancing around anything.
We're getting off topic.
Anyways, so no, it would reduce it, because you'd automatically remove a huge income stream from them and reduce their power. So that's, I'm not talking like, I'm talking it would be an ancillary benefit, not the main, because they would immediately lose power, and they'd also lose a lot of access to their victim base.
Okay.
But the other thing that you would do is, again, you would remove their power. It would reduce crime,
Maybe.
because costs would be reduced. Now think about it this way. So you're Mr. I grow cocaine and traffic it across the border, whatever.
It's not that simple, but
It's
go
not
ahead.
that simple, but there's a lot of cost involved. There are officials to pay off. There's transportation costs. There's lost product because your mules are getting caught as they go across borders. There's all kinds of costs built into that, right?
I guess.
If
I
it's
don't know. I've never been
legal,
a drug trafficker, so.
if it's legal and the state is selling it, none of those things apply.
Do you know what? Even after all the states that have legalized marijuana, to this point, they're still trafficking large amounts of marijuana into the country, and the reason mainly is because, well, dispensaries can't keep up with the supply and demand.
I'm sorry, that's kind of awesome.
I was watching a thing on CNBC about it, and they were talking about these dispensaries in Colorado, Washington State, and I think some other state in Midwest, is like Iowa or wherever the hell it was. But they have days of the week they're closed, and they just put a sign up that says "out of weed." They can't keep up with the supply and demand because you can't grow it fast enough because the demand has been there.
This is another thing that we should bring back to smaller communities. Community pot farms.
Well, in Oregon, you can have, I think up to 2 plants or something like that. And
Yeah,
that's
for personal use. I think that's been a law in Oregon for a while, hasn't it?
It has.
Yeah,
it definitely has. But if they can grow weed, if you can grow weed, but then again, if you could grow Doritos on a tree, you'd still go buy Doritos at the store.
Yeah, because I don't want to pick Doritos off of the Dorito tree. Although a Dorito tree would be fucking amazing, wouldn't
Would
it?
it?
Just like, I'm hungry.
Well, but whatever. People are still going to want the convenience of it, and like here. I mean, I was in 7-Eleven yesterday, getting a coffee, and the 2 guys in front of me were buying weed and beer. And I'm like, okay, like, whatever. Knock yourself the hell out, man. And one guy turns and he goes, "It's about time it's legal here." I'm like, dude, are you just now realizing that? I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
He's like, it's 4:20 somewhere. I'm like, I think today is only the 12th.
Oh my God,
I know I'm not the brightest, quickest individual in the world. I was like, 4:20 somewhere. I'm like, no, even with international date lines, this is what I'm thinking in my head.
Do you remember
it's not the 20th anywhere.
Last year, my mom had an appointment. She wanted me to take her to.
Yeah.
And she goes, "Hey, I've got an appointment. Can you get the day off so you can drive me to it?" And I was like, "Yeah." And I go to input the day off, and I called her back, and I was like, "So here's the thing, Mom. If I ask for this day off, my boss is going to give me side eye for the rest of my employment. You don't ask for 4:20 off." Can you reschedule your appointment?
Yeah. All right, so I got a couple of questions that I want to. They're polls that are on my other channel.
Oh.
That I would like to get your feedback on.
Okay.
So. Yeah, I know. Everybody's sorry. I have to turn notifications back on. Yeah.
All right, what do we got here?
I haven't even clicked on it yet. Can you hold on? Hold on.
No,
hold on.
You hold on tight.
Hold on tight.
Be right with
Look
you.
at this face.
God, he's so cute. Look at the face.
All right. Question of the week. In America, there are several defenses for murder. Should there be a defense for justifiable homicide?
Yes, some people just need to die. No defense for murder. Maybe it depends on the case. I will explain below. I will not explain below. Should there be such a thing as justifiable homicide? I'm going to go with no, Although I do feel like I do feel like there could be extenuating circumstances that would exonerate
So
somebody
that
of
would be
homicide.
maybe depends on the case.
No. Because the term justifiable homicide
Hmm.
makes it sound like you sat down and were like, made a yes no list of, like, do they suck bad enough for me to ice them? Do they not? And, evaluated it like that. And I'm willing to say that probably not, because if you've got the time to put that kind of thought and effort into it, you probably had other
I think you're
resources.
way overthinking this.
I might be. It's what I do. Uh like
Is there a case for
I
justifiable
don't
homicide?
I don't think so, because like I said, it
What
makes it.
about self-defense?
Well, yeah, yeah, definitely. But I wouldn't consider that to be homicide.
In the actual, murder is murder. Homicide,
But when you're talking legal definitions, there's a difference between homicide and manslaughter. And I think if you
so
say
justifiable manslaughter.
maybe,
Wow. So even in self-defense, like he's trying to kill me, and you pick up the gun instead after you knock it out of their hand and you shoot them, they die. Is it justifiable homicide? You didn't put any thought into it. It was in the spur of the moment. They came at you
I
with a
would
gun. You knock the gun out of their hand. You pick up the gun and you shoot them.
I would argue that that's not homicide.
What would you call it? Justifiable entry of wound
I,
and
like I said,
loss of air
the
capacity.
phrase just makes it sound like there was a lot of thought into it. Yes, that scenario that you just described, I would say 100% the person is justified, but I don't know that I use that phrasing. So yes, you're right. Use different words.
Okay, all right. Next question. Can a child offender, sexual offender, be rehabilitated?
So, to clarify, by child offender, do you mean that the person who committed the sexual offense was a child when they did so?
Oh my God! What?
No, this
I
is
know, I
this is
know.
important to
Okay,
know.
all right, all right.
Or do you just
Can
mean
a sex? How about we just go with the second part of it? Can a sex offender be rehabilitated?
um I want to say yes, but I don't think so in a lot of cases. The thing that people forget about sex offenses is a lot of people think that sex offenses are sex based, and this is going to sound weird, but I'll elaborate. Basically, like some guys like, "Oh my God, you're so hot," and right?
And he beats her.
Well,
What is
it's
what is that?
this forcible sex. This is
Okay,
yeah.
rape.
I don't think you can say that on Facebook on YouTube. I think you're not allowed to say that. Say that.
Oops.
You can get your video pulled. Um, I think. Uh, I think that's what a lot of people think when they think of rape. They think it's somebody sees somebody who's attractive and they have sex with them against that person's consent. And what they don't realize is that most sex offenses are less about sexual attraction and more about causing harm. It's about power and dominance. So it's less sex and more I can do this to another person. And given that scenario, no, because that is something broken in the individual who is perpetrating that you wouldn't be able to fix. I would argue that while they're a despicable piece of shit, um, the frat bro who has been convinced by his buddies that everybody wants him and he has sex with a passed out woman, that he's a rapist and he's a huge piece of shit. I would think that with time and education, he would realize that he's a huge piece of shit and do better. But how many times does that happen?
Okay. All right. Now let's take the first part of it. Can somebody who commits a sexual offense against a child be rehabilitated?
No. And the reason for that is because, like I said earlier, it's not about sex, it's about power and dominance. And so most child sex offenders offend the children that they have access to. There's always going to be differences, right? There's, every individual offender is a shitty snowflake. But most of them don't offend based on a preference for the child. It's just the children they have access to, right? Priests are molesting little boys because that's the children they have access to. Dance instructors are molesting little girls because those are the children they have access to. Most children are abused by family members and trusted authority figures, priests, police officers, teachers. The specter of the spooky stranger who sneaks into your house and rapes and murders your kid is like less than 1% of sexual assault that happens. It's the people that we let into our children's lives that do this. It's one of the reasons why the whole anti-bathroom trans people in bathroom things really pisses me off, because it's directing people's attention away from where threats actually are, and that makes me very angry. Digressing, now we're back to the main point. So, knowing that people who are child predators are selecting their victims based on availability, access, and availability, and knowing that it's not about the kid, it's about them being able to victimize someone, that's not a psychological profile that you can rehabilitate. With the caveat that there have been rare instances of sexual predators who knew that there was something wrong with them and desperately wanted help and tried to get it. And off the top of my head, I can think of 3 individuals, total worldwide. I'm sure there's probably more. I'm sure there's probably more. And one of them was actually in a pilot program for chemical castration. He wanted to hurt kids, but he didn't want to hurt kids. And
he wanted to hurt kids, but he didn't want to hurt kids.
He had a compulsion to hurt children. He hadn't yet, but he knew he had the compulsion, and he didn't want to be that person. So he shopped around until he found a psychologist who was willing to help him and initiated the trial of chemical castration.
But he didn't do anything wrong.
No.
Yet.
No. And it's not a popular take, but I would say that while people like that person that I just described, holy shit, that's awesome, more of that, recognize that you've got some fucking issues and take some steps to take care of it. Drastic fucking steps, right? I would argue that somebody who has that compulsion and actually acts on it, there's probably nothing that you can do for them, and they should just be put down.
Okay. So then the third part of that question, since I'm breaking it apart in 3, is can a child who commits a sexual offense against another child, can they be rehabilitated?
Probably. And I mention that, I say that because most of the case studies I've read of children who have committed sexual offenses weren't fully aware of what they're doing. There's one of the case studies I read, the child was copying something that they had seen on a video that they had seen. One of them, this one I'm not entirely sure. You can go back and forth. Was an older child but had intellectual difficulties. And I'm not saying I'm not phrasing that correctly. Not that they couldn't be rehabilitated per se, but this particular child would probably, even as an adult, never really have the capacity to understand what they did. You know what I mean? Like, okay. So can you really rehabilitate somebody if they don't even understand what they did wrong?
But then again, but then that goes for all crime, though, not just
But then again, if somebody can't understand what they did wrong, can we really effectively punish them? Because they have no idea what they're being punished for.
We've executed people for less.
And we shouldn't have.
I know, and as dirty and as disgusting as that is, people would, well, framed for murder. They knew the person had the intellect of a child, and they were convicted as an adult. They had no mental capacity to make the right or wrong decision, but we still executed them. And these are the things that as Americans, we never will understand or come to terms with, because we just sweep it under the rug, just sweep it away. Let's pretend it never happened. But I was reading about, the reason why I put the poll question up was, I was reading about a case where it was a 9-year-old little boy who had been severely, sexually and mentally and physically abused. And at the age of 10, he started to act out all the things that were happening to him to other children within his school. And it is wrong as it is. He knew it was wrong that was happening to him, but he wanted to. It was his way of trying to cope with the situation in his little 9-year-old head.
Yeah, I honestly, I don't know that I would consider that sex abuse, because at 9 years old, a 9-year-old does not have the mental capacity to understand that. They know that they're doing something wrong, right? But a 9-year-old prefrontal cortex, basically as smooth as this. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm exaggerating. It's not actually smooth, but they're not. They can't put those kinds of things together. So honestly, I wouldn't even really consider that sex abuse, because that's not. That's a desperate cry for help.
At the age 10, just before his 11th birthday, he was convicted of 5 felonies of abuse and molestation against another child. We incarcerated him here in Washington State until he was 29 years old, when he took his own life.
That is
He
absolutely
never got a day free. We never gave him any kind of therapy, nothing at all. It was I'm reading this, and I was like, oh my God. It's like my gut just went out. And I was like, they never prosecuted the adult who abused him either. They got away with it because they said they didn't have any evidence of it. This was like, I think 1986 is when it happened.
absolutely awful.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for destroying my day.
Right? That's what I'm here for.
Do you have a happier poll you can have me?
Oh yeah, I got another one. Question of the week: what do you think about will happen to Minnesota-Minneapolis if Derek Chauvin, former Minneapolis police officer, is found not guilty of murdering George Floyd, the unarmed African-American man? How about that one? Want to answer that question? What do you think is going to happen in Minneapolis if Derek Chauvin is found innocent?
I've been following that trial. I don't think he's going to be.
Well, we'll just hypothetically say that he was found not guilty. What do you think is going to happen? I mean, I hope calmer heads prevail. But it looks like of the 639 people who answered that poll, 86% believe they will riot, looting, and burning the city down.
Yeah, that's probably the way it should go.
Huh?
Yeah.
What?
That's probably the way it should go, yeah.
Why? Why would you say that?
Why not?
Why would you think that? Are you being sarcastic? Well, okay, first off, here's something that's never made sense to me.
If the justice system fails...
If the justice system fails, well, let's just go if the justice system fails. All right?
Shouldn't we set it on fire and start over?
No. Okay, you burn the jail down. Burn the courthouse down. All right? But here's what I don't understand. It has never made sense to me in all of the history books that I have read, and everything that I've read about the LA riots, the Watts riots, everything. Going back to, through the race riots and everything else in the South, the marching and all that stuff. But everything that's happened. Why on earth would, if you want to, picket, loot, rob, and burn your city down, why do it to your own freaking neighborhood? Why don't you go over to Whitey's neighborhood and burn it down? or where the officer lived in his community, why, or the judge, or where their community is. Do it there. Send a clear message. You screwed us on this. We're going to riot and picket in your area. We're going to be there because we're going to bring it to your front door. But why do you have to burn down your own community? Because all that does is just keeps you more impoverished, because now you have nothing except for a bunch of charred remains. And nobody comes back in later on and says, you know what, I think I'm going to spend money in that neighborhood, and put in some business opportunities and employment in that neighborhood, because they burned the last one down.
Well, most people who live in impoverished neighborhoods don't own any property there.
I know.
So they are.
I mean,
they are burning down the power holder, because
that goes back,
those buildings are owned.
They're filled with mom and pop stores, and stuff like that, and that's
they have insurance.
But they're never going to come back and offer that opportunity, that job in that area. I mean, if you look at how long it took after the Watts riots in Los Angeles, how long it took for them to rebuild the community, and what was there beforehand, and what took place, businesses came in. I mean, half of the actual employment is there that was there from beforehand. The economic development, the city said, we're just not going to spend any money here because we're not getting any tax dollars here. So even if they did get insurance money, they weren't making the tax base. So they're like, now the streets start crumbling. People don't want to, build anything there. Nobody wants to fix their, anything. I mean, it's all done. You just watch it,
like we discussed earlier about community investment and stuff like that. That is an excellent point. That community investment would probably cut that down. Because like I had pointed out, most buildings in impoverished neighborhoods are owned by corporations. So if you're setting that building on fire, regardless of whether or not you actually live in it, you are putting a hit on somebody who holds power in that community. But if we gave property back to the people that lived in those communities, we probably would burn down courthouses.
Okay, that's the same time though. You can't put money back into the community by selling that property back to people within the community. Well, they don't have any money.
To be fair, I don't mean sell it. I mean take it and give it to them. You live here. This is yours now. Hi. I love you so much.
Oh my God, my head is about to explode. We can't do that.
Sure you can.
We worked really hard for all of what we have.
Mm-hmm.
That guy that sleeps in the bushes over there, next to the park, should we give him the property back that he once, lived on?
I think that's a disingenuous argument. We have worked really hard for what we have, and we have enough to sustain ourselves. We don't.
We have way more than just to sustain ourselves.
Yeah, but we also
need all this.
We also have a lot of people we sustain. Your mother.
Yeah.
Our children.
Well, don't forget about my friends and your friends.
And yes. But we don't have a rundown apartment building that we refuse to do repairs on.
We sold that too. We know exactly what happened to the only affordable housing in our community. It's gone.
Right.
Guess who got it?
We don't have a shitty fucking...
It's a parking lot.
Yeah.
Can you remember just where the green apartments?
It's a parking lot now.
Yeah. To a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
And it's things like that make me feel 100% okay saying, take that property and give it to the people that live there. Because the corporation that owns it doesn't fucking need it, isn't taking care of it. And when you give people investment into their communities, they take better care of their communities. Why should I invest my time and resources when they're really, really limited, taking care of the property of the people who are helping to limit my economic success? Fuck them.
So how do you really feel? Wow. Jesus. But at the same time, though, I mean, you know, those corporations didn't just get that money, buy that property for free.
No, they probably bribed off some council people to get it.
I don't know if that happens everywhere, but it definitely happens here.
I don't have statistics on it, but I'm willing to bet a large amount of the money that circulates in corporate America wasn't actually earned.
Yeah. Well, I,
And
we
honestly,
live in a very small bubble, community
oh
here,
yeah,
that is sheltered from a large amount of what's going on in the world.
absolutely.
It's amazing just how much corruption there is right here.
Hmm.
And to such a level that we're trying to recall the sheriff for taking ammunition that they would have used up anyway.
Not just that, we're trying to recall the sheriff for witness intimidation because when he beat his wife up and then told her he was gonna do it again if she didn't tell them that she made it up, and half this guy's fucking supporters are like, I can't even believe he'd do something like that. You can't believe it?
I wasn't going to go down that rabbit hole. I was just going to say the corruption starts from the sheriff's department down. The highest, member of our law enforcement is corrupt as F. And then, the undersheriff was fired. Then they put in another one and he was fired. And they put in another one, he was fired.
Not only it is the sheriff under investigation, but a local council person, or actually not a council person, she keeps running for office and never gets fucking elected because
she does it just long enough to get the money, and then she drops out, and then she signs back up and goes to another position, and then drops out as soon as she gets the money.
This politician was having an affair with this sheriff while he was married and beating up his wife. I'm guessing because she was mad about the affair. I don't know why.
She should have been okay with it.
Honestly, he's a piece of shit. I probably would have been too. I'd been like, wait, you're boning someone else? Cha-ching! Divorce time! But, anyways, he's a piece of shit. So, so she was having an affair with this sheriff, and then he was being investigated for beating his wife up and the witness intimidation thing. And to help him, she made allegations of sexual assault against the prosecutor who was doing the investigation to try to get him kicked off the investigation.
Yeah. All false.
Yeah, they weren't.
She made it all up, and it wasn't even a good lie.
It wasn't. There were people there.
Yeah, it was like 100-some witnesses that didn't happen, and it was like, "Are you kidding me? You couldn't pick like a one-on-one situation where it could have happened that way? No, you picked an event where there were hundreds of people." But anyways. So we've talked about the stock market's rigged against us. Credit scores are rigged against us. If you're poor, you're going to stay poor. And if you're rich, you're going to stay rich. If you're middle class, you're going to get screwed. We talked about marijuana. We read some polls that have been online. We talked about the corruption here within our own community. And nothing happy at all in any of this.
Why can't we talk about happy things? Why don't you bring happiness?
I'm not a happy person. No, I'm a really happy person. You know that. I just talk about nothing but negativity all day long. I haven't found a single person that wants to tune into my true crime channel and hear a positive story because I can't find any positive, true crime stories.
I can find some positive. Well, wait. I think you and I might have different definitions of what's...
Right. We're not going down that rabbit hole.
I mean, okay, but...
Anything else you'd like to cover today? Or you want to just call it there? And tell everybody happy, summer solstice? I don't know, what is it? We have some kind of thing is there like a happy, cheesecake day or anything coming up?
Oh God, I hope there was a cheesecake.
Is there a cheesecake day? I think there is a cheesecake day. We have days for everything.
Yeah.
I mean, last week I know there was Happy Lollipop Day.
Last Friday, not just this past Friday, but the one before that was National Unicorn Day.
Unicorns?
Mm-hmm.
You have a unicorn rainbow there. What is this? You're Next?
Yeah, You're Next.
And the Grim Reaper?
Yeah.
Oh. How lovely. I never noticed. All right. So we're going to go ahead and wrap it up there.
I hope everybody has a lovely Sunday, and we'll see you next week.
Well, hold on before you say
No, I already
that.
signed off.
No,
We can't
no,
have any
hold
more
on.
things.
Next
No,
Sunday.
we're done.
No, I don't know if I'm going. We're going to have to either film one before next Sunday, or you're going to have to do it by yourself.
Why?
I'm busy.
What are you doing?
Golfing.
Mm,
Yeah,
No.
I'm golfing next Sunday.
I have plans next Sunday. Sorry.
Do you?
Yeah.
Well, it don't matter. I'm golfing.
It's the installation of officers.
Oh, you know what? I'll wave to you from the golf course.
Turn off the thing.
Bye, everyone.